Good evening everyone. I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IS English channel. Today is 12th of March and we are going to discuss important articles that I've picked up from our today's newspaper. Now to begin with, we'll be discussing International Criminal Code. And why are we discussing International Criminal Code? Because the former president of Philippines, he has been arrested by the authorities as an arrest warrant against his name was issued by the International Criminal Code. So from our today's perspective, we'll understand what is International Criminal Code, what all countries are the members of ICC, and how this body ICC is different from International Court of Justice, which is an organ of United Nations. Now these kind of bodies, they are important from GS paper 2 syllabus because this syllabus deals with the IR part of the UPSC syllabus. Understood? Then we'll be understanding Starlink. Starlink is actually a satellite-based internet service by the company called as SpaceX, whose owner is Elon Musk. Now this company has got into a JV with Airtel to set up its internet facilities in India. Also, now as I was researching about this article, I found out that Jio also has undertook a joint venture with Starlink to provide internet services in India. So actually, what technology is this Starlink based on and how it is able to provide internet technology? We'll discuss everything in our today's discussion. This kind of an article are primarily important from GS paper 3 perspective, that is the syllabus of science and technology. Then we'll be understanding the CIPRI report. Now this CIPRI report is actually a report published by an NGO located in Sweden, and this report, it publishes the details about which country in the world are importing which kind of a weapon system from which country. So we'll understand in detail about the global trade in arms and ammunition, and you can understand according to this report, historically India has been the top importer of arms and ammunition across the world. So does similar report in this year also highlights that India is still the first country in the world in terms of import? We'll try to find that one out in our today's discussion. Now these kind of articles are remotely important from GS paper 3 syllabus because it deals with the matter of arms and ammunition, which are important from our internal security point of view. Also in recent times, we have witnessed that Indian government wants to increase domestic manufacturing of arms and ammunition so as to reduce its reliance on import. So these kind of a report actually tells us whether or not Indian government is successful in this regard, right? So we'll try to understand this in our today's discussion on CIPRI report. Now Lydia, Sejal, Augustine, Namrata, Niranjan, Nakshatra, Saujanya, Amar, SS Talk, Shushmita, good evening. Deepak, मजदूरी करके आया हूँ sir. Good Deepak, I'm very impressed by that fact that you work very hard. तुम बहुत मेहनत करते हो, बहुत अच्छा लगता है सुन के मुझे. Saujanya, I guess one of your answers from the day before yesterday is pending. I will evaluate it today, okay? Now I saw Baga Spinks in the comment section, but I believe he has deleted his comment. Where is Baga Spinks? Now we'll move on to the next article, that talks about gene edited banana. Now you must have seen that the bananas which grow brown in nature, we generally do not eat that bananas, even despite the fact that those bananas are very much edible and tasty. But just because that banana has turned brown, we throw them in the dustbins. So now research have actually pointed out that with the help of gene editing, you can actually prevent those bananas from getting brown. Understood? So that is why we'll understand what are the genes behind growing brown of the bananas and how it can be prevented with the process of gene editing. Now these kind of articles also are important from GS paper 3 perspective, that is the matters related to science and technology. Then we'll be understanding India's wheat output. Now India, the two important primary crops in India are paddy, that is rice, and wheat. So in that regard, India's wheat output becomes very important when it comes to meeting its food security imperative. As you can understand, India has a huge amount of population, and particularly in the states of north and west part of the country, wheat is consumed primarily as the staple food, right? So in order to provide food to large amount of people, you need good output of wheat, and also if the wheat output is not good, you can understand it can lead to increase in prices of wheat, which can create all sorts of political and economic controversy. So in that regard, the production of wheat becomes very important from our news as well as exams perspective. Understood? Therefore, we are going to estimate the amount of production that is going to happen, and we'll also understand the conditions which are necessary to cultivate wheat in India, right? So these kind of an article also are important from GS paper 3 perspective, because if you look at the syllabus quite closely, there is a line that says major crop, right? And I told you, among two major crops, wheat is one, another one is paddy, that is rice. Then we'll conclude our today's discussion by understanding the various nuances and intricacies of the India-Mauritius relations. And why are we talking about India-Mauritius relations? Because currently India's Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi is on an official visit to Mauritius, his only second visit since the time he has become Prime Minister. But why is actually Indian Prime Minister spending so much time in a remote island country in Africa? We'll try to understand the significance of Mauritius relations in context of India and what is the historical connection between these two countries, right? So this article becomes important from GS paper 2 perspective, because you can say Mauritius is in very immediate neighborhood of India, as it is located in the Indian Ocean region, right? So therefore these are the important articles that we are going to discuss today. Bagas Pinks, hi sir, still here. Well, my eyes are very sharp. I see and I remember who all have commented, even if I miss out on replying those comments. Okay. Good evening, Gibson. Niranjan sir, how to submit answers in the Telegram channel? The chat is muted. I can only see your messages. Well, in the chat, whenever I post, there's an option to comment. So click on the comment. It will take you to another group where you can subscribe, right? You can ask your friends also. They'll help. They also submit the answers in the similar discussion channel, okay? Surprised to know Jan Aushadhi is international and in Mauritius. What is Jan Aushadhi? Well, as usual, the notes for this session will be available on my Telegram channel, ATS Live. So you can either search the keywords ATS Live on the top right hand corner of your app, or you can also scan the QR code, which will take you directly to my channel, right? Yes, Deepak, you're correct. Modi ji ko Mauritius mein highest, he has been bestowed with the highest civilian honor in the country of Mauritius, right? Now, let us deal with the yesterday's practice question, right? Now, with reference to laws in India, consider the following statement. Before making an arrest, officers must have a material evidence proving the guilt of accused and must record their reasoning in writing. Now, we read about the Supreme Court limitations on the officers of income tax and indirect tax authorities. So, on what conditions they can arrest people in case of violations of GST law as well as Customs Act, right? Now, one of the observations is that you can't just arrest any person on your whims and fancies. You need to first of all have a material evidence that proves that that person is guilty, and on the other hand, you have to give in writing the reasons based on which you are arresting the person. That is two safe mechanisms. So first statement directly is correct. Now courts, it can question the merits of the reasons to believe recorded by the officers before an arrest is made. Is the second statement correct? Can anyone let me know? The third statement, the accused must be informed about the grounds of arrest to ensure that their rights to challenge in court or apply for bail. Well, third statement is a correct statement. It is a direct statement, and you can understand it also is a part of principle of natural justice, that whenever you arrest a person, you have to tell them the grounds based on which you are arresting the person so that they can challenge it in the higher authorities, okay? Now the second statement becomes incorrect. Well, courts, it can't question the merits of reasons to believe, but it can actually take into consideration what were the evidences that you considers to come at a conclusion to establish that the reasons to believe, or you have reasons to believe that the crime has been committed, right? So it can't question the merit of your reasoning, but it can question what kind of evidences that you have considered, whether those evidences are relevant in the case or not, okay? So second statement becomes incorrect. We have to identify correct statement. So option A was the right answer. Understood? Now this is the question that we are going to practice today. Okay, read that's in Mauritius now. Yes, actually, yes, you are correct. I thought you were talking about two different kind of schemes. Yes. Now, practice question that we are going to discuss today, it is about the India's relations with Mauritius, and you have to examine the role of India's developmental assistance, trade agreements and defense cooperation in strengthening the bilateral ties between two countries. Understood? So, how to approach this kind of an answer? We'll understand this, but before that, we have to understand the various details about India-Mauritius, right? So, all of this we'll cover in our today's discussion. Now, let us begin our today's discussion with this first article that appeared on 2 pages of the Indian Express today, that is on page 13 and page 14. Now, both of these two articles actually talk about the same thing. It is that the former president of Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, he has been arrested on March the 10th based on a warrant which was issued by the International Criminal Court. Now, this International Criminal Court was investigating the allegations that were made on Rodrigo Duterte based on the fact that he committed crimes against humanity, and even when he was the president, under his order, the Philippines Defense Forces committed crimes against humanity on the pretext of undertaking a war on drugs. So whether or not he was guilty or not, this was been established by the International Criminal Court, and till the time his guilt has been proved, he has been arrested by the authorities under the warrant issued by ICC, that is International Criminal Court. Now the question must be arising in front of you, what is International Criminal Court? Do we actually know International Criminal Court, or how is it different than the ICJ or International Criminal Court of Justice of the UN, right? So let us understand all of this in our today's discussion. Now, ICC or International Criminal Court, I am not talking about International Cricket Council, I am talking about International Criminal Court, that is abbreviated also as ICC. Now ICC, it is a permanent judicial institution which was established in 2002 based on Rome Statute of 1998. So this is an additional body as compared to International Court of Justice. Now this ICC, it is headquartered in Hague of Netherlands, and the mandate of this body is to investigate, prosecute and adjudicate individuals who are accused of committing genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity and crimes of aggression. Now the members of ICC, these are 123 countries, and you have to understand many big countries are outside the jurisdiction of ICC. For example, non-members, they include India, US, China, Russia. So all of these countries, they are not the member of ICC or International Criminal Court. Understood? Now, let us understand the composition of ICC. Now, ICC consists of 18 judges who are from different member countries, and they are elected for a period of 9-year term. Now, ICC, it can only hear a case if either the country where the crime was expected to be committed and the perpetrator or the accused of those crimes, the country of the origin of that perpetrator is also the member of ICC. So both of these satisfied, or both of these conditions needs to be satisfied. That is the location where the crime happened and also the nationality of accused. Both of them have to be the members of ICC, then only ICC can investigate the crimes. Understood? Now, after issuing an arrest warrant, ICC, it relies on countries itself to make the arrest and transfer the subjects to the jurisdiction of ICC, which means ICC does not have a law enforcement authority of its own, it does not have a police authority of its own, rather it depends on the authorities of the related countries itself. Understood? Now, what you have to remember is, unlike International Court of Justice, this ICC, it is not an organ of United Nations. It is rather an independent organization as compared to ICJ or even the United Nations. Understood this composition? Now let us on a very basic level understand the comparison between International Criminal Court and International Court of Justice. International Criminal Court, it was established much later as compared to ICJ. ICJ was established in 1946. ICC was established in 2002. However, the commonality between the two is that their headquarters are located in the same city. Now, I told you, right, with respect to the relationship with UN, ICC is independent, whereas ICJ is the official court of the United Nations known as the World Court. Whereas ICC, technically, it may receive a case from referral as compared to UN, but in direct relation, there is no relation between ICC and UN. Now, the case types which have been considered, these are criminal prosecution of individuals. These are considered by ICC, whereas contention between two countries on an issue, that is dealt by ICJ. For example, the death penalty that Pakistan levied on Kulbhushan Jadhav, that became a source of contention between India and Pakistan, and this matter reached the International Court of Justice. Why did it reach International Court of Justice? Because India is not a member of International Criminal Court. Understood? So contentious between parties or like countries and even seeking advisory opinion, they refer the matters to ICJ, not ICC. The subject matter, it deals with genocide, crimes against humanity, that is ICC, whereas ICJ deals naturally with the issues that plagues between two countries. For example, issues of sovereignty, issues over maritime disputes, violation of human rights, interpretation of treaty that are signed by countries. These are the matters dealt by the ICJ. Now, in terms of funding, the contributions are made by the parties or the members of Rome Statute, even voluntary organizations, UN, governments, corporations, etc. Whereas for ICJ, the sole financing responsibility rests with the United Nations. Understood the difference between these two bodies? I hope everything is clear. Now, if everything is clear, let me know the correct answer to this question in just 10 seconds. Quick. Consider the following statements regarding the International Criminal Code. ICC is a judicial organ of the United Nations responsible for handling individual criminal cases. Now, it is responsible for handling individual criminal cases, but is it the judicial organ of the United Nations? The answer is obviously incorrect. Second statement, ICC can prosecute individuals for crime only if either the accused country or the crime location of is a party to Rome Statute. Both of these conditions needs to be satisfied, then only the ICC can investigate and prosecute the particular criminal. So second statement is correct, first was incorrect. The third statement, ICC has its own enforcement mechanism to ensure compliance with its arrest warrant. Is the third statement correct? Obviously it is not. It does not have its own enforcement authority, rather it depends on the enforcement authorities of the country itself, right? So third statement is correct. Incorrect, only second was right. We have to identify correct statement here. Therefore, option B is the right answer. Sir, is ICC's decision bindable? You mean is it binding on the countries? Well, yes, the member countries, they have agreed to ICC statute, right? Which means they agree to accept any decision made by ICC, whereas India does not agree. So that is why it has not signed this decision. Yes, every one of you, Namrata, Baga Spinks, Saujanya, Lydia, Sejal, all of you are correct. Now moving to the next article of the day. This article talks about the Airtel's agreement with Musk's SpaceX to offer Starlink internet services in India. Now, as I was reading about this article, I saw today Jio has also announced the JV with Starlink. Okay. So now both of the India's big top telecom provider companies, that is Airtel and Jio, have agreed to offer Starlink services. So it is expected that Starlink services will be offered in India. And this article is important from GS paper 3 perspective, that deals with the matters of science and technology. Understood? Now, what this article talks about? It talks about that Bharti Airtel, it is partnering with Elon Musk owned SpaceX to bring Starlink satellite based internet services to India. But this agreement is tantamount to the fact that this will only happen if the SpaceX receives authorization from Government of India to sell its Starlink devices in India. So for that, you understand the permission of Government of India remains very important. If you have to offer internet services, if you have to offer mobile telecom services, if you have to offer any kind of communication services, there you have to take the permission from the Government of India, and only if this permission will be given by the Government of India, then only this JV will materialize. Understood? Now in this regard, let us try to understand first of all what is Starlink project and how is it different from the usual internet that we get through broadband or through mobile, right? Now, Starlink project, it is world's first and largest satellite constellation which uses satellite placed in low Earth orbit to deliver broadband internet capable of supporting streaming services, online gaming, video calls and more. So all of those kind of services which are available through broadband services right now, that is wired broadband services, through 5G in mobile, everything will be offered by the Starlink project. What is different is that they will be offered through a satellite constellation which will be placed in the low Earth orbit. Now, instead of using cable technology or optical fiber cables that are laid down underground to supply or to provide with mobile signals, they require transmission of internet data. The transmission over the Starlink, it happens using radio signals through the vacuum of space. So instead of sending the mobile signals through optical fiber cable, these are sent in the air with the help of satellite, right? Now this delivers high speed internet which has low latency. What is low latency, you understand? For example, this is a satellite placed in the outer space and this is the receiver signal located on the earth. So the time it takes the data from satellite till receiver signal and again back to, this is called as latency. So you can understand, the lesser the time it takes for the signal to be communicated in this direction, you understand, the quicker the internet will be. So low latency signal is actually good if you have to do gaming services, right? So for example, if you give a command to shoot in the gaming, right, only this command will be executed when this data will go to satellite and come back to your receiver signal. So low latency data is quite essential if you have to game on the internet, if you have to stream anything on the internet, right? So that is why low latency is very desirable. So this low latency services is offered because these satellites are placed in the low earth orbit, right? So this system is very ideal to provide services in the rural areas, because what we do in rural areas, you have to lay down optical fiber cables throughout the distance, which can be quite costly affair. Rather than laying down these signals, what you can do is you can place a satellite receiver in the rural area, and that will ensure that the connectivity of rural area is ensured through the satellite interbase services, right? So this is why these kind of services are quite important. As I tell you, this is the very basic representation of how Starlink would work. You can see there is a satellite which is communicating the signal through the computer here. The computer is connected through the internet with this satellite and it is communicating this internet over the antenna which is connected with the website server, right? So this data is transmitted to the house with a network of satellite which are placed very close to the earth orbit, that is in the low earth orbit, right? So this is what the internet signal, or how the internet signal is provided using the satellite services. Now this offers an unlimited high speed data through an array of small satellites which are delivering up to 150 megabits per second of internet speed. Now what is important to note, that it uses low earth orbit satellite system and a phased array antenna which helps to keep its performance intact even during the extreme weather conditions. Now you can understand, whenever there is an extreme weather conditions, there is a fair bit of chance that it will damage the mobile radio tower, right? It can also, in very rare cases, it can damage the underground optical fiber cable. But when you're using, or when you have placed a satellite in the low earth orbit, the chances of it being destroyed by any kind of a natural calamity would reduce. And also the delivery of these internet services are quite cheaper in the rural areas, because if you have to set up optical fiber cable and if you have to connect an urban area with rural area, it takes a large amount of cost, whereas cost is not a prohibitive factor when you have to establish these kind of services in a remote or a rural area. Now unlike conventional internet providers, it operates without the need for ground infrastructure, and users, they only need a small satellite dish or a receiver device just like your DTH devices to connect to the internet, and voila, the high speed internet is available to them. So these are the benefits of Starlink facility, and that is why many Indian companies are entering into a JV with SpaceX. Now what is the regulatory status of Starlink in India as of today? Now as of today, Starlink has not received the regulatory approval in India under any kind of an Indian legislation, be it Wireless Act or Indian Telegraph Act. For example, Section 6 of the Indian Wireless Act and Section 20 of the Indian Telegraph Act, it actually prohibits the use of satellite based communication devices without the explicit approval of the government. So in that case, I told you, right, Government of India's approval is necessary if you have to start deliver the satellite based internet services. Understood? Now let us solve this particular practice question. Consider the following statements regarding Starlink. Starlink, it is satellite based internet services which is operated by NASA to provide global broadband coverage, and it is particularly in the remote and unserved areas in the world. Now, is it operated by NASA? The answer is incorrect. It is operated by a private space company which is owned by Elon Musk, known as SpaceX. So, first statement becomes incorrect. The Starlink constellation, it consists of low Earth orbit satellites which help in reducing latency as compared to traditional geostationary satellite. Yes, the geostationary satellite, they are set up thousands and thousands of kilometers up in the space. So technically the signal, when it will be transmitted from these geostationary satellites, it has to travel a longer distance if you have to reach Earth, right? So the time taken would naturally be higher. So how do you reduce the time? By reducing the distance of satellite from the Earth's surface, that is placing them in the low Earth orbit. So second statement is officially correct. India has officially granted approval to Starlink to operate commercial satellite internet based services in the country. The answer is incorrect. As if now there has been no regulatory approval given to Starlink, right? So you have to identify statements which are correct. Only second is correct. First and third are not. Therefore, option B is your right answer. Starlink services seem like a gamble considering national security and personal data. Well, actually it is a gamble, but I'm hoping that the government is also aware of these kind of issues, and whenever they'll be providing with the regulatory approval, it will be subjected to certain conditions, right? So that is why I trust Government of India, and you should also, because people employed in Government of India, they know a thing or two about national security more than as compared to us. Okay. India should enforce strict restrictions on Starlink, ensuring data localization, cyber security compliance while accelerating indigenous projects like ISRO's and OneWeb satellite network. Well, SS Talks, Nakshatra, Shushmita, Namrata, Bagasping, Sejal, Lydia, Sojanya, Gibson, every one of you is right. Beast F Fly, guys, I need some guidance for UPSC CSE. If anyone can help, please reply. You can ask your question here. I will also try to reply, Beast. And please also let me know your correct name. I don't want to address you as Beast, okay? Now moving on to this new article. This article actually was published in the Indian Express website, but as I saw other newspaper also covered this article, so I thought this you should not miss out on, and you'll know why I don't want you to miss out on such kind of an articles. Now this article is important from GS paper 3 perspective, as it talks about which country is the highest importer of arms and ammunition, and you can understand India naturally is also a key importer of arms and ammunition. So talk about critical minerals, talk about natural gas, talk about crude oil, talk about gold. India is a importer of everything that is desirable in the world. Now, the context of this article. This article actually talks about Stockholm International Peace Research Institutions, abbreviated as SIPRI. Now, it has released a new data on international arms and transfer. Now, every year, this organization comes up with a report which actually tells us the data, which country is importing what kind of arms and ammunition from which of its friendly nation, right? So, these kind of informations are very important. If you have to understand the trend of how the global geoeconomics and geopolitics is happening, you can understand the trade in arms and ammunition. Understood? Now, let us first deal with this particular organization. This was founded in 1966 and it is based in Stockholm of Sweden. It is globally renowned institute which is dedicated to undertaking research on conflict, armaments, arms control and disarmament. And SIPRI, using its yearly book, it provides critical data on analysis of global security issues, and also it gives a very important analysis of military expenditures and arms trade that happens across the world, right? Now, therefore, this kind of a yearly report it becomes very important if you have to understand the trend in arms trade across the world. Now, first of all, let us understand the import trends in terms of global arms trade, right? Now, Ukraine, it is, according to SIPRI this year, it is world's largest arm importer globally between 2020 to 24, witnessing nearly 100-time increase in its imports of arms and ammunition as compared to 2015 and 19. And you can guess the particular reason, right? Because it is currently involved in a war with Russia, and to deal with the Russian onslaught, Ukraine needs a lot of weapons which is provided to it by countries like US, by members of European Union and also UK, right? Also, in terms of second ranking this year, India is ranked second largest arms importer, and you can understand as compared to the last 5 years chunk, India's arm imports has declined by 9.3%. And why do you think this decline has actually happened? Because government wants to indigenize the manufacturing of arms and ammunition in India. So this is one of the key reasons why India's global import of arms and ammunition has reduced, and despite this reduction, India now holds the second position. First is whom? The Ukraine. Whereas European arm imports, it also grew by 155%, and you can understand the concern is as same as the Ukraine's concern, because Russia is in a very aggressive mode, and as it has conducted a war with Ukraine, the countries located in Europe, they are also afraid or they are also concerned by the security infrastructure in their country, so they are undertaking huge amount of arms related imports. So this is the key data with respect to global arm imports. Now let us talk about the arms import in India's own neighborhood. Now, what is India's biggest rival in the neighborhood? It is China, whose arms import have dropped, and now it has gone out of the top 10 importers of domestic arms for the first time since 1990 to 94. And this data actually reflects that the China itself has strengthened its domestic defense ministry. It has strengthened its domestic defense ministry so much so that it has become the main supplier of Pakistan arms also. Now Pakistan, it imports arms in huge numbers, and this has increased by 61% from the last 5 years, that is from 2015 to 19. And China, it is the biggest supplier of Pakistan's arms and ammunition, contributing 81% of total Pakistani imports of arms and ammunition. Now, let us talk about the export trends, right? Which is the world's largest exporter of arms and ammunition? You need not even guess, it is the United States of America. And in terms of exports, it is overall expanding. Now, it is expanding its dominance, increasing its share to 43% in the global arms export. Now, historically, the country which is placed second in terms of arm export has been Russia. But this year, Russia has witnessed a significant decline in its arms export. Now, it fell by 64%, and it now just makes only about 7.8% of the global market. So the next question must be, instead of Russia, who is the second largest exporter of arms and ammunition? This is now France, because in recent times we have seen France has overtook Russia as the world's second largest exporter of arms and ammunition, accounting for 9.6% of global exports. And major buyers of France or French arms and ammunition, it is India, which is the largest buyer of arms and ammunition, 28%, followed by Qatar, which buys about 10% of total France's arms export, right? So these are the key data. Now let us understand some of the important data of India's arms imports. Now India's largest supplier even today remains Russia, but the share of Russia in total arms imported by India has declined significantly. Earlier it was 72% between 2010 and 2014. It reduced to 55% between 2015 and 19. Now it has declined further to just 36%. That is only about 1/3 of total arms which are important to India. These are imported from Russia. Now India was earlier the biggest export destination and also is the biggest export destination for arms which originate from both Russia as well as France. Now France has emerged as a key supplier to India, accounting for 28% of total France arms export, as I have already told you. And major arms deal that has happened with France in recent times is the Rafale fighter jets for Indian Air Force. Now it is expected that 26 Rafale M, that is for Indian Navy, will also be imported from France. Also, India bought 6 Scorpion class submarines under Project 75. Now, under this, the government also wants to buy 3 more submarines, right? So, these are the newer arms import that have happened from France in recent times. Understood? Now, let us try to solve this particular question. Consider the following statements regarding global arms imports and export trade. Now, India remained the largest arms importer globally in 2024 despite a decline in its overall imports as compared to the 2015 and 19. Now India has actually witnessed a decline in its overall import, but now India is the second largest, not the largest arms exporter. Who is the largest? It is the Ukraine. Second, France surpassed Russia to become second largest arms exporter in 2024, with India its largest recipient. This is correct. India receives about 28% of total French arms export. Now China, it remained in top 10 arm importers primarily due to its growing regional security concerns. Now, although China is witnessing many growing regional security concerns, however, they have tried to deal with the security concerns with its domestic industry and not relying on imports. So that is why China has went out of the top 10 arm importers, and third statement becomes incorrect. First is incorrect, third is incorrect, second is right. We have to identify correct statement. Here also option B is your right answer. Yes. Sejal, Amar, Nakshatra, SS Talks, Lydia, Saujanya, Namrata, Baga, all of you are right. You know what happened? I decided to make this question incorrect, but somehow I forgot. So that is why this question also was option B. Now, let us move to another article. This article appeared in the explain section of the Indian Express, which actually talks about this kind of a brown banana, right? Now, if you look at this brown banana, you may go yuck, right? And even if this kind of a banana tastes actually good, the probability of you throwing this banana in the dustbin is quite high just because it is brown in color. Now, the scientists have devised this. Now, what scientists wants to do? It wants to develop a new genetically endangered banana which has a longer shelf life and does not become brown as quickly as the usual banana. So how is this actually possible? Let us try to find that one out. Okay. Now, how do actually bananas turn brown? Now, banana, they undergo a natural ripening process due to a hormone called as ethylene. Now, this hormone, it actually produces large amount of ethylene even after it is harvested out of the plant. Now, this ethylene, it triggers genes which are responsible for producing polyphenol oxidase, that is PPO, and this is an enzyme that causes browning when it reacts with oxygen. So, this kind of an enzyme known as polyphenol oxidase, it is actually what is responsible for browning of the banana, and this browning happens when banana is reacting with the oxygen. Now, this PPO, it breaks down the yellow pigments which are present in banana, causing the fruit to turn brown, right? Understood this process? So, there is a natural hormone ethylene which triggers the genes which are responsible for producing the browning color, that is polyphenol oxidase. This is an enzyme. Now, scientists, when or if they can disable the gene which is responsible for PPO production without affecting the ripening process, this is how you can actually slow down the process of browning of the banana. Now, this technique has also been applied to tomatoes, melons, kiwi fruits and mushrooms. So, this is not an exclusive phenomena with respect to banana, but in terms of browning, this is quite prominent in banana, although it happens in many other fruits. Now, the significance of this development, why is actually scientists trying to develop these kind of bananas? First of all, they want to reduce the amount of food wastage, because it is assumed as much as 50% of bananas they go to waste annually, and also this kind of a benefit has to the environment, that food wastage is a major contributor to greenhouse gases, and in order to reduce the greenhouse gas emission, what you can do is you can reduce the amount of food wastage. Understood? So, this is what the process of browning of banana is, and how you actually stop this browning of banana by disabling the gene which is responsible for PPO production, that is ethylene, right? Now, tell me the right answer of this practice question. Sir, my name is Jasjot. I am a beginner who is preparing for CSE exam alongside college. Is reading newspaper important or watching newspaper analysis video sufficient? Well, you can choose either of the two. If you can successfully manage reading the newspaper in an hour, and if you know what is important and what is not, please follow the newspaper. If you're still beginning, my recommendation of you would be to continue watching these sessions, as I undertake these sessions in 1 hour and I cover 5 to 6 articles every day. Sometimes I even cover 7 articles, and the purpose of which you will get every information that is relevant for your UPSC syllabus on a daily basis, right? Sheetal, good evening. Correct answer. What is the correct answer? So, Jasjot, I hope I have covered your query. If you have any other query, you can still comment it, okay? You have to identify incorrect statement here. Anyone? The correct answer is, or sorry, the incorrect statement is, नहीं बोल रहा है कोई. Well, correct statement or incorrect statement rather is option B. Polyphenol oxidase is responsible for breaking down of yellow color, not breaking down of starches and converting into sugars that makes banana sweeter. Understood? So, second statement is actually incorrect. Yes, Namrata, Nakshatra, you are correct. Shushmita also correct. SS Talks also correct. Niranjan, who has a logo of Puma, I don't know why. Baga Springs also correct. Now, Beast, if you are preparing your course, you also have an option of enrolling yourself into Sampoorn batch, right? Sampoorn batch is actually an online batch where we teach each and every subject to our students, and also we provide you with relevant study materials. And in many cases, or in all cases, whenever you will be completing your learning, in order to practice whether you have learned sufficiently or not, you will have an option to write both prelims and mains test series. Also, if you are having any kind of a problem during your preparation phase, you always have an option to contact a mentor. A dedicated mentor will be assigned to you, and he or she will be available to you 24/7 so that your queries can be resolved as soon as possible. And all of these benefits are available in Sampoorn batch. And let me tell you a way how to enroll for these kind of batches. Now, suppose you go to our website. This is our website. You have to create an account here. Click on Explore Courses. Now, when you click on Explore Courses, you will be provided with many kind of a batch. But if you are comfortable in English, I'll recommend you to enroll for UPSC IAS English by clicking here. See, there are batches available right now. Right now, you can enroll for a 2026 batch whose admissions are undergoing correctly. Now, the prices for which this course is available right now is 34,999. These prices are discounted prices which are available until, if you enroll until 15th of March. But I'll tell you a way if you can get more discounts even from this amount, right? Now, there must be a ticker flashing on the bottom half of your screen, right? That uses or use the code ATS Live to gain maximum discount, right? So, click on Buy Now here. You will be given an option to add promo code right here, right? Click on Add Promo Code. When you enter coupon code, write ATS Live, okay? As soon as you write ATS Live, click on Apply. Now see, as soon as you applied ATS Live, the course fees has reduced from 34,999 to 27,999, right? That is a discount of 7,000 rupees. And you understand 7,000 rupees is a huge sum of money. So please enroll these kind of discount coupons and use maximum discounts on your StudyIQ enrollment. I hope I've addressed your query. And if you still have any query, Just Jyot, you can still answer me in the comment section, okay? Now, let us move to the another article. This article actually talks about India's wheat output. Now, I told you, right, wheat is a very important crop as far as India is concerned, because in many states, including north, west part of our country, wheat is used as a daily staple food, right? So, in terms of availability of wheat is very essential if we have to meet our food security requirements of the country. So, understanding how much India is going to cultivate wheat every year is very important. Now, in today's discussion, it has been said that India's wheat production is estimated to reach 115 million metric tons, marking a 2% increase of 113 million metric ton in 2023 and 24. And if you look at the amount of wheat production that is happening in the last 5 years, you can see in this year's the number was highest in 2024 and 25, that is 115.4 million metric ton, which is highest in the last 5 years. Understood? So this is what the trend of wheat production in India is. Now let us understand some of the details about the wheat cultivation in India. Now it is cultivated as a Rabi crop. And why is it a Rabi crop? Because this crop requires cool growing season, which is available during winter season, and bright sunshine at the time of ripening. And this crop usually ripens at the time of March to April, right? So this is why this kind of a crop is important for Rabi season. Now, the soil which is required for growing wheat, it is well-drained loamy soil which is rich in organic matter. These are ideal for wheat cultivation, and in terms of temperature, ideal temperature ranges between 10 to 24 degree centigrade. So you can easily say that it requires cool growing season. Now also you require a frost free days of about 100 days for its cultivation, because if there is not a frost free days, or it will be rather moist days, it will damage the productivity of the wheat crop, which requires less amount of moisture. Understood? So this was the geographical condition that you require to grow wheat. Now in terms of wheat cultivation in India, wheat is India's second largest crop in terms of area coverage. Which is the first largest crop? It is paddy, also known as rice. Okay. Now in 2023 and 24, wheat was cultivated on about 318.33 lakh hectares of land, and this is second largest as compared to the number of crops in India. Now the top producers in India, first is Uttar Pradesh, second is Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan. Whereas in terms of countries, the largest producer of wheat is China, followed by India, Russia and then US. So in terms of global production, India ranks second, whereas in terms of state-wise production, UP ranks the first. Okay. Now let us solve this question with reference to the growth of wheat. Wheat is a kharif crop that requires high temperature and abundant rainfall for its optimum growth. Every aspect of the statement is correct, because it is a rabi crop which requires cool temperature and a frost-free days. Okay. So first statement becomes incorrect. India is the second largest producer of wheat globally after China. Yes, this is the correct aspect. Madhya Pradesh, it is the largest wheat producing state in India, followed by Punjab and Haryana. What did I tell you about the production in terms of state wise? UP is the highest, followed by Madhya Pradesh, followed by Punjab, followed by Haryana, right? So which of the above statement given is or are incorrect? Now third is incorrect, first is incorrect. Option C therefore is your right answer. Amar, Lydia, Baga Spinks, Shushmita, Nakshatra, SS Talk, Saujanya, every one of you are right. Now let us move to the last article. This article फिर से गायब Baga Spinks का comment. Sejal Gupta, option C. Yes, you are right. Now, let us move to this last article. This article is written by Mr. C. Raja Mohan, who is India's one of the foremost foreign policy experts, and his article appears every Wednesday on the Indian Express newspaper. This time, he has written India's article, or this article which he has written this time is on Prime Minister Modi's visit to Mauritius. Now, this visit becomes quite important because Prime Minister is on a 2-day state visit, and this is his second visit since he has become India's Prime Minister in 2014, and last time he visited it was back in 2015. Now he will also be the chief guest of Mauritius's National Day celebration, which happens on March 12th, that is today, and the visit will also touch upon the contribution of Siva Saur Ramgulam and his ancestry from Bihar, and celebrate the common cultural connections that are celebrations of Mahashivratri and Ganga Talo Holy pilgrimage site. Now, India and Mauritius, they have a very close cultural cooperation, and this close cultural cooperation is the key reason why India and Mauritius are so close to each other in terms of relation, right? Not in terms of geography. Now, Mauritius, it is a strategically located island nation in the western part of the Indian Ocean, and it is a very important neighbor for India. And the key reason for this special tie, as I already told you, that people of Indian origin, they comprise nearly 70% of the island's population, that is about 12 lakh of people. Now, 70% of these 12 lakh people, they belong to Indian origin, right? So that is why Mauritius becomes very important. Now you know, right? Mauritius was once a French colony before it was taken over by British. Now under it was nearly a century long French rule. Indians, they were first taken to Mauritius from the Puducherry region to work as artisans and masons. Whereas at the time of British rule, about 500,000 of Indian indentured workers, they went to Mauritius between 1834 and 1900s, and this labor that was already available in Mauritius, they now about 2/3 of them, they stayed behind in Mauritius and eventually they settled in Mauritius. And this is the reason why even today 70% of Mauritius population belongs to people of Indian origin, right? So this is the history of India and Mauritius relation. Now you know that the National Day celebrations which will happen in Mauritius, of which Prime Minister Modi is the chief guest, it also has an interesting Indian connection. Now this interesting Indian connection was Mahatma Gandhi, who had briefly stopped over in Mauritius on his way from India, on his way to India from South Africa in 1901. Now he gave Indian workers present at that time 3 transformative messages: that the importance of education, political empowerment and staying connected with India. And as a tribute to Mahatma Gandhi, the National Day of Mauritius is celebrated every year on March the 12th, which is also the date of Mahatma Gandhi's Dandi March, right? So March the 12th is not the date when he arrived in South Africa, rather it is a tribute to Mahatma Gandhi's participation in 1930 civil disobedience movement, particularly through the Dandi March. Now let us understand the history of ties between India and Mauritius. Now Mauritius was among the few countries with which independent India establishes diplomatic relations back in 1948, and since its independence from British rule in 1968, Mauritius has mainly been ruled by 2 political families. First family is known as Ramagulams, that is heralded by Sivasagar Ramagulam and his son Naveen, and also another family is known as Jagannath, who has been headed by earlier Anirudh Jagannath and his son Pravin. Now Pravin was earlier the Prime Minister of Mauritius, but recently the election happened and now Naveen or Mr. Naveen Ramagulam is the Prime Minister of Mauritius. Now overall, the political dynasty or the political control of this country rests with either of these 2 families, that is Ramagulams or the Jagannaths. Okay. Now, especially Ramagulam or Naveen Ramagulam, who is now the Prime Minister of the Mauritius, his father was, or he was the one who led the country's freedom struggle, and he became the first independent PM of the independent Mauritius. That was father of Mr. Naveen Ramagulam. Now, Mr. Naveen his father of Naveen Ramagulam, he worked closely with many Indian freedom fighters, which included Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sarojini Naidu, and even had strong links with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and he even proofread one of the Netaji's books, that is India Struggle of 1934. So this is the connection that the political class of Mauritius has it with India, that they are very close, not just culturally but even politically to India. So that is why both the relations between these 2 countries are so close. Now let us understand the main area of impact where India's relation with Mauritius has flourished. And for India, the main importance in Indian Ocean region is what? It is to check the increasing footprint of China in the Indian Ocean region, right? And for that, it wants to work quite closely with Mauritius. How is that possible? Let me tell you. Now, India signed a memorandum of understanding with Mauritius back in 2014 to undertake developments in the Agalega Island, which is located north of Mauritius and it is under the control of Mauritius, right? Now, this is a very remote island which has an area of about 70 square kilometer and it is located about 1100 kilometers north of the Mauritius and it is closer to the India's southern coast, right? So, in terms of map, you can see it here. Mauritius is here and 1100 kilometer north is the Agalega Island, which is quite close to the India's coast right here. Now it is somewhat southwest of the Maldives. Okay. Now this is the Agalega Island and India has developed many infrastructure on this island. Importantly, the airstrip and also the naval bases, right? Now in February 2024, India and Mauritius it jointly inaugurated an airstrip and jetty projects which highlighted the common development of the projects by both India and Mauritius. Now, it was alleged by many countries that India uses this particular island to station its naval forces, right? And it was categorically denied by the previous Prime Minister of Mauritius, that was Mr. Pravind Jagannath. Okay. Now, notably, Mauritius has faced the devastating cyclone Chido last year, and even which this cyclone affected the Agalega Island, India managed to mobilize its naval asset which was present in the region region, and it utilized the facilities that it created in the Agalega Island to deliver assistance and relief materials. So understand, India is a net supporter of this region. It is the first responder if any crisis happens, and India makes sure not to leave any of its friends behind. And these facilities that the India have created on this particular island, they've additionally assisted Mauritius in undertaking its maritime surveillance, in patrolling of its vast economic exclusive zones, and also safeguarding the assets of its blue economy ecosystems from not just other countries but also from piracy as well as drugs and human trafficking. So India's development in the region is not for its own reasons but for eventual development of Mauritian people. This you have to understand. Now, what are the areas of focus? Not just defense is the area of focus, right? Defense is one of the area of focuses. What are other areas of focuses? Let us find out. First, the most important, as we already know, is the area of defense, and the two sides, they are looking to move on with their improved defense and maritime security, and they are likely to sign a technical agreement on sharing of white shipping information between Indian Navy and the Mauritius authorities. Now, why do you need the white shipping information? These are information relating to commercial ships, right? So whenever you'll be able to track how many commercial ships are moving around in the waters of Mauritius, then only you'll be able to understand, right, whether or not there are other military based ships or not. Further, Indian projects are very famous in Mauritius. Numerous Indian assistance development projects, they dot the Mauritian landscape, and the development assistance in terms of money support has been, in the last 10 years, has been about $1.5 billion, $1.1 billion. And among this, $729 million is through lines of credit, that is in a form of loans, whereas 427 has been in terms of grant, right? Now, the most important Indian project, or the most important Mauritius or project which was established in Mauritius with the help of India, was the Metro Express trains that runs to the capital city of Mauritius. Okay, so this was the most highlighted aspects of the cooperation between India and Mauritius. Now let us talk about the other area of focus. As I told you, right, India is the first responder in the region, that God forbid if any natural disaster happens, India makes sure to deliver the assistance at the first, and this is only possible because India has significant presence of its workforce there, and that has also created many infrastructure. For example, India has traditionally been first responder to Mauritius, be it COVID-19 pandemic, be it an oil spill crisis, and also the cyclone which happened last year. Now, in terms of trade, Mauritius is India's second largest source of FDI after Singapore, and whereas India and Mauritius, it also signed a free trade agreement, which was India's first free trade agreement with any African country. And at present, 11 Indian PSUs are present in Mauritius, which shows how much close both trade relationship is between these two countries. Also, other two important areas of cooperation is space cooperation. As earlier in 1980s, India set up many satellite tracking stations in Mauritius. Now in 2023, Mauritius Research and Innovation Council and ISRO, they've signed an MOU to establish a framework for cooperation for developing a joint satellite. Now, is India a major space power globally? That is why India is now helping other less fortunate countries like Mauritius in order to undertake their space related development. Also, India is a key country which helps capacity building of the workforce of other countries through particularly Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation ITEC program. And under this ITEC program, one of the largest beneficiaries has been Mauritius, as India has trained around 5,000 of Mauritians under both civilian and defense slots under the ITEC, and about 2,300 Indian students, they are currently pursuing higher education in Mauritius. So these are the key area of cooperation between these two countries. Now this is your practice question. Please ensure that this practice question, you have to examine the role of India's developmental assistance, trade agreements and defense cooperation in strengthening the bilateral ties between these two countries. Now how will you write the introduction part? This is what I want to see today. Make sure to complete your answer in 250 words and make sure to submit this by, well, why some of the articles are missing from my newspaper and page numbers are also different. Well, Kapish, there is a possibility that some articles are covered in today's newspaper, might be in your paper, some articles are covered from last year's newspaper. So what Indian Express does, that it has a habit of jumbling the articles from one day or the other based on the amount of or the version of edition that you are referring to. Suppose if you are reading a newspaper which has been published in another part of the country, there the placement of articles and even the amount of articles can be quite different. So what I make sure is to cover Delhi's article, and even if some other article has appeared in the newspaper, I take the screenshot of those articles from the website of Indian Express, right? So my purpose of taking this session is to cover everything that is relevant, not necessarily the quickest coverage, but more importantly the best amount of content that I can give you. Okay, I hope every one of you is clear about that. Now, please make sure to submit your answers by 8 p.m. and if you have liked this video, do not forget to give us a thumbs up, as it helps me keep motivated. Please understand this. Now, I wish you all a very happy Holi. There will be no session tomorrow and day after tomorrow because there's a holiday of Holi. I'll meet you again on Saturday. So please take care. Have a very safe and prosperous Holi. We'll meet again on Saturday. So this is a goodbye from my side.